When I was a kid, I was taught that we all have these strands of DNA, which we do, of course, and that the way evolution works is that there are random mutations or substitutions that exist at the cellular level of our DNA that change the synthesis of proteins within our bodies, and that these random mutations either improve or mostly degrade our fitness, our ability to reproduce and pass our DNA on to our offspring. So that is to say that human evolution would be this bottom-up process of random changes occurring at the atomic or the molecular level that then are expressed up through these larger scales, our body, and that evolution is this sort of slow process of sorting out which of the random variations here are successful at the larger scales. That's what I was taught. It turns out that that's a way oversimplification, so oversimplified that we can call it false. This new book, The Secret of Our Success, postulates a different idea, that it is learning that makes human beings unique. I forget the exact number, but something like 99% of our DNA is shared with a chimpanzee or very similar to other apes. So if this theory were correct, how is it that our civilizations and our thinking and our patterns of behavior are so much different than chimpanzees or bonobo? I understand that they're similar in many ways, but please, so much different in important ways that make us human. The thesis behind this book is that it is learning that creates the difference. That its evolution doesn't proceed exclusively through this slow process of mutation and expression and selection, but that it proceeds through cultural learning. That people learn how to survive, and that it's their behaviors in harsh climates or in social situations that are selected for that make them more or less successful, passing on knowledge, including the knowledge that is encoded in their DNA, but the knowledge that is encoded within their brains, by teaching their children, by teaching their peers, by teaching others. If that's the case, and Henrich makes a convincing argument that it is cultural learning, that is learning about how to behave from other human beings that drives human evolution, and that actually this learning feeds back through selection pressure into our DNA, through epigenetics, into the expression of our genes, that it's this learning which really drives evolution of the human race, then we'd better understand learning a lot more than we do. Well, where do people go to learn? They go to learn in the university. And if universities and schools are the seat of learning, and learning is the key to human evolution, we got to understand learning and the way that universities organize it much better than we do. The typical model of university-based learning is science, which proceeds through structured experimentation. Henrich says that's okay. That's the kind of learning that takes place in this neocortex, this front part of the human brain on which we are extremely well endowed. But it's not the most fundamental way that we learn. We learn by imitation of prestigious models. That is, human models. Prestigious. The people whom we perceive to be successful, we imitate. And that's the kind of learning that takes place in these other parts of the brain. It can even be an unconscious learning. It's not systematic and structured experimentation. It's not the way science creates knowledge, which is slow and laborious, and certainly the domain of the university. It's the way that we create knowledge as children by sorting out which are the models that we should imitate and then testing whether those behaviors are successful for us too. It's why celebrity endorsements are such a successful approach for getting people to change their purchasing behavior. It's why some people can get paid $100,000 for posting something on Instagram. If they have the prestige and they're in public where they can be perceived, advertisers know that the human brain is hardwired to imitate the behaviors that it considers or that prestigious models exhibit. So how does this relate to universities? In a previous article, I wrote that universities are good at two things: training athletes and conferring social status. The real business of the university is knowledge. In research, universities create knowledge. In teaching, universities share knowledge. We curate it. We organize it. The product of the university and the business of the university is knowledge. But what we're sure universities are really good at is conferring social status and training athletes. And this discrepancy didn't make sense to me until I'd read The Secret of Our Success. Because when people choose a university, which they want to attend, or they want to talk about, or they want to imitate, it is very natural for them to choose the universities on the basis of prestige. Not on the basis of what the universities do with knowledge, which is very difficult for people to assess, but on the basis of prestige, because we are hardwired to learn from prestigious models. And how do universities accumulate prestige? Certainly, they can do it through these markers of knowledge. Nobel Prize winners on the faculty, academic competitions and prizes, inventions, patents, other accolades or fame that are brought to public notice through the mechanisms of dissemination or celebration of science. But what's more obvious to people is the success of the sports teams and the social status of the university, which might be conferred by certainly some of these measures, but other things like exclusivity or wealth of the university or famous alumni. Zuckerberg and Gates both dropped out of Harvard, but that doesn't stop Harvard from using their career success as a way of burnishing its own social status. So it is training athletes and social status is one of the mechanisms by which universities elevate their prestige. And prestige is important in the selection of a university because the way we are hardwired in our brains to learn by imitation of prestigious models. Now, the things that the universities are very good at make so much more sense to me because I have an improved understanding of the way human beings learn.